In football, it's becoming more and more clear that if a club wants to succeed, they need a good owner. Owners can make or break a football club, and changing owners can change an entire team's fortune. But if an owner doesn't work, they could easily go on to ruin the entire team and lose all faith in the fans. And this is happening right now at Crawley Town, where an American crypto company called Wagmar United just completed their first season as the owners of Crawley, and it did not work. Crawley went through 5 managers, made some baffling transfer decisions, and even gave YouTubers a trial. So today, let's have a look at Crawley Town's recent season. But before we get into that, I just want to let you guys know that I'm still running a podcast called Snag Sport with Tin N, who's a great YouTuber you should sub to. But as for the podcast, we're covering all sports, whether that be football, AFL, basketball, cricket, tennis, we're covering a lot. We've released 4 episodes so far, and it's getting better every episode, so I'd recommend go subbing and checking out, link in the description. Ever since Crawley got relegated from League 1 in 14-15, they've been a stable League 2 side. Halfway through their first season back in League 2, Turkish businessman ZRN brought the club with the intention to have the club back in the championship in the next decade. Now this year ended up being a bit too far-fetched, but Crawley has still become a respectable League 2 side. Over Aaron's reign, Crawley finished 20th, 19th, 14th, 19th, 13th, 12th and 12th. But over April 22, Crawley Town went through a takeover from Wagmar United. And you may ask yourself, what is Wagmar United? Wagmar United is a crypto company. That's right, the fate of Crawley Town now relied on crypto. Wagmar stands for We're All Gonna Make It, and their website claims that they're taking Crawley Town FC to the Premier League. But why don't we meet some of the people behind Wagmar United? What the hell is that? Anyway, time to meet the team. This is Gary Vaynerchuk, also known as Gary V. If you don't know who Gary V is, he's a guy worth around $200 million who scams working class civilians at garage sales.
Do 20 for both?
No, I don't think so. Go 15? In the middle? Alright. Box Hot Wheels collectible cars for $15, and I looked up one so far. This one.
Born in Belarus, Gary's family immigrated to the USA when he was 3. As a child, Gary fell in love with an NFL team known as the New York Jets, and one of his lifelong dreams has been to own the Jets. And you know, New York Jets, Crawley Town, there's not that much of a difference. Anyway, let's scroll down a bit more, and oh my god, is that Daryl Morey? The Daryl Morey?
No, it's just, for me, I can't do it.
You can! You can do it, you can!
I didn't recognise anyone else on Wagmar's team, but some of them have NFT profile pictures, so I think that tells you all you need to know. Anyway, the main 2 guys at Wagmar United are Preston Johnson and Evan Smith. And who are these guys? I don't have a single clue, but they call themselves, are you ready for this? The Crypto Bros. I'm actually lost for words. But they were here and they were ready to prove themselves. After taking over from ZRN, Crawley had 6 more games to go in the 21-22 season. They won 2, lost 3 and drew 1, but these results really had nothing to do with Wagmar. With the transfer window shut when Wagmar arrived, they really had nothing to do with Crawley's 21-22 season. What they did control, however, was the following season in 22-23, where it was up to Wagmar to get the perfect team. And that started with choosing a new manager. From 2019 up until the end of the 2022 season, Crawley Town were managed by John Yems. Yems had done a decent job at Crawley, however in April 22 a few allegations came out about him, which we'll get into later. All you need to know for now is that Yems left Crawley in May 2022, and now Wagmar were in charge of hiring a new manager. They were linked with managers like David Artell, Paul Rayner, Mark Cooper and Emma Hayes, but in the end Wagmar would appoint Kevin Betsy. Betsy was an interesting choice. In his playing career he was a journeyman midfielder who played for 13 different English clubs, but as a manager he was unproven. Betsy had managed the underage squads of both England and Arsenal, but this would be his first management job in senior football. And as for Crawley's transfer window in the summer of 2022, it was just a typical League 2 transfer window. All their departures were free transfers, and all their signings were free transfers and loans. The signings were a good mixture of young EPL and Championship players who were ready to prove themselves, and older players who had already shown their quality in League 2. Based on the transfer window, Crawley were actually looking okay, and so the Kevin Betsy era got underway. And it was awful. In Crawley's first game, in a away match against Carlisle, they conceded early and lost 1-0, and they were lucky to not lose by more. Then in the second match, at home against Leyton Orient, it was the same story. Crawley conceded and couldn't get back in the game, and lost their second consecutive game 1-0. Crawley earned their first point of the season with a goalless draw against Harrogate Town, and even though they lost 2-3 to Northampton the next week, at least Crawley Town had finally scored, with Liverpool only James Balagsy bagging a brace. Around this time, Crawley were making waves in the Carabao Cup. They played Bristol Rovers at home in the first round and won 1-0 thanks to a Tom Nichols goal. Then they welcomed EPL side Fulham to Broadfield Lane and won 2-0 in a shock win, with goals from Nichols and Balagsy. Even though the league results have been underwhelming, this cup run has given the supporters a bit of faith that Kevin Betsy was the real deal. And after a few more disappointing results, Betsy finally got his first league win as Crawley boss, as his side won 3-2 over Stockport County. You would think that with this result, Betsy would kick on and lead Crawley back up the table. Nope, they lost 4 on the chart. Not only this, but they lost their first 2 games of the Papa John's Trophy, losing on pens to Portsmouth and also losing 3-2 to Wimbledon away. And with Crawley Town's chances of advancing in the Papa John's Trophy pretty much dead, as well as the fact that Crawley was sitting 23rd in League 2 with only 7 points in 12 games, it was clear that something needed to change. And so, on the 9th of October, Wagmar sacked Kevin Betsy after only 100 days in charge. So, who was the replacement for Betsy? Well, the next day Wagmar hired Lewis Young as the interim manager. Lewis, who's Ashley Young's brother, was a right back who played over 200 times for Crawley. Despite only being 33, Young had already coached Crawley. He would join Yems as assistant manager and managed Crawley on the final day of the 2022 season after Yems left. So Wagmar calling him up for a part-time gig was actually nothing new. But despite only being brought in as an interim manager, Young did really well. He went his first 7 games in the league unbeaten with 4 wins and 3 draws. One player who was stepping up was Ashley Nadeson, who scored 5 goals in 5 games. Unfortunately, while Young was doing well in the league, he is struggling in the cups, being knocked out of all 3 of them. Crawley lost 3-1 to Burnley in the Carabao Cup and 4-1 to Accrington Stanley in the FA Cup. Crawley did beat Aston Villa's under-21s at the Papa John's Trophy, but the previous results under Kevin Betsy ended up hurting them, and they were knocked out in the group stage. But these results are okay, because now Young can focus on dragging Crawley out of the relegation zone, and he was doing a good job of that. After 7 games, Young had led Crawley to 19th, 4 points clear of relegation. And if we only counted the results ever since Young's arrival, then he would have Crawley sitting in 9th. This had fans wanting Young to become the permanent manager, and he said he was open to it too. It seemed like a no-brainer. And so what did Wagmar do? They sacked him. They sacked Lewis Young. But you're not going to believe why they sacked him. Are you ready? Young was sacked because over his last 5 games, Crawley were outshot 87 to 28. Not outscored, outshot. It was at this point when Crawley fans all started to wonder the same thing. Do Wagmar have any idea what they're doing? So, for the 3rd time in this video, let's meet the new manager, Matthew Etherington. In his playing career, Etherington was a winger who played 288 times in the Premier League for Tottenham, West Ham and Stoke. But in terms of managing, all he had done was being an assistant manager at Peterborough before losing 2-1 to Fulham in the one game he was a caretaker manager. But to be fair to Etherington, he won his first game in charge 2-0 against Swindon Town, with late goals from Nicholas Savula and Jack Powell. The signs of Etherington's appointment actually working out were there, and sure, he'd gone on to lose his next 2 games, but that was okay. Etherington was brought in by Wagmar as a long-term project. Wagmar were going to keep faith in Etherington, they weren't going to act rationally, and oh my god, they've done it again. Now to be fair, when your team's taking corners like this, maybe you deserve the sack. But the drama is only getting started. Let's talk about Crawley striker Tom Nichols. Nichols was halfway through his 3rd season at Crawley. In his first season he scored 15 goals in 46 games, and in his second he had 10 goals in 40. He was going through a bit of a rough patch this season with only 4 goals in 23 games, but he was still one of Crawley's best players. So, what you do when one of your stars is in a rough patch of form is get behind them, support them 100% and back them to refine their form. What you do not do is sell them, especially to a relegation rival. And that's exactly what Wagmar did. Now, with another manager being sacked and a star player being sold to a relegation rival, it was finally time for Preston Johnson to face the music and speak to the fans. And I mean, all it said was a load of rubbish. But a week later, even more media attention was turned to Crawley. And this time it wasn't even Wagmar's fault. You guys remember at the start of the video how I talked about one of Crawley's old managers, John Yems? Well, it turns out that John Yems is a piece of Now, I'm not going to say anything that Yems did because it doesn't really need to be repeated, but if you want to go find it, you can. But even though Crawley didn't have to do anything since they'd already moved on from Yems, it kind of held ringing that a former Crawley manager was openly racist. But speaking of media attention, Crawley were even getting a bit of that on social media. Let's take it back to September. The popular UK YouTube group, The Cybermen, are hosting a charity football game at the Valley, and Crawley tweeted out that they're going to be scouting some players in that match, and that's great. A bit of a joke to get some likes on Twitter, no harm done. Then Crawley actually offered players from that match a trial. Seriously. Toby Brown, a Cybermen member also known as Tobe Drizzle, was offered a trial along with his brothers Manny and Jed, and the fans were not happy. And in the end, Jed actually got offered a contract, and the fans were really not happy. Now, when Johnson asked why he offered 3 social media stars with no professional football experience a trial, he said, "It's no secret that we want Crawley Town FC to become the internet's team." No, I'm not joking. This is a serious quote. So now you're all caught up in what was a very messy Christmas period for Crawley Town, from sacked managers to racist managers, and from sold strikers as social media stars. After assistant manager Darren Barfield stepped in for 2 games, in which Crawley lost 3-1 to Stevenage and drew 2-2 to Newport, Wagmar once again announced a new official manager. This was Scott Lindsay, and finally, Wagmar actually appointed someone with a bit of managerial experience. A lower league midfielder in his playing days, Lindsay received his first managerial job back in 2010, being Lincoln City's caretaker. After that ended, he took up roles like under-18s manager at Swindon Town and assistant manager at Forest Green Rovers, and he finally got his second job as a senior manager in 2019, becoming the manager of non-league side Chatham Town. After 2 years at Chatham, Lindsay became the manager of Swindon Town, and won 10, drew 8, and lost 12 games as Swindon manager, before Crawley sold off Swindon on the 11th of January 2023. And when Lindsay was appointed, he only had one job: keep Crawley up. Crawley were 20th at the time of Lindsay's appointment, 3 points clear of the relegation zone. And Lindsay's first game, Crawley grabbed a massive 3-2 win over Salford City. So, did Crawley kick on from this? Nope, they won 8 games without a win. After the 3-0 loss at Sun United on matchday 33, Crawley found themselves only 1 point outside of the relegation zone. At this point, Crawley were only out of the relegation zone because Hartlepool and Rochdale were even worse, not because of their own merit. They were also 6 points behind Gillingham, who they had sold Tom Nichols to. But this is where I'm actually going to give Wagmar some credit. It would have been easy to just sack Lindsay and fire another manager. I mean, they'd sacked Lewis Young despite getting much better results. But sacking yet another manager in a relegation fight would have been a disaster. Having to get the players to adjust to yet another coaching staff on the spot would not have worked. So instead, Wagmar put their faith in Lindsay, and he repaid them with results. Crawley went the next 5 games unbeaten, April was a doggy month with 3 losses and 2 draws, but a Dom Telford race vs Hartlepool gave Crawley a 2-0 win. Now all Crawley needed was a point from their final 2 games to stay up. The next game was a home match against Walsall. It was a boring 0-0 draw, but that didn't matter. Scott Lindsay had done the impossible, and Crawley had somehow stayed up. Despite everything that Crawley had gone through, they would be staying in League 2 next season. Before we end the video, let me talk about Wagamai real quick. Do I think they have any chance of succeeding at Crawley? I honestly don't. Now, maybe this first season was an adjustment season for them. Maybe they'll learn from their mistakes and improve on them next year. It could happen. But for me, they are so out of touch with everything it takes to own a football club. They keep talking about how they want to promote to the fans on the internet. Hell, they literally want to be the internet's club. And that's great. What about the people who are already Crawley fans? The 2,000 people who have brought tickets to every home match and travelled all over England to see away games? I just don't feel like there's a strong connection between Wagamai and the fans. Now, to be fair to Preston Johnson, he does try hard in this area, constantly releasing press conferences and updates about Crawley, but a lot of his decisions are unpopular with fans, and that's only going to create a divide. Now, like I said, Wagamai still have time to fix things, but if they don't, I hope they just don't ruin Crawley Town. We've had clubs like Bury, Bolton, Wigan, Southend United and Scunthorpe all fall victim to owners promising big dreams and not delivering, which ends up creating turmoil for the club. That's how Bury lost their club, and I don't want to say that happened with Crawley or any other team. But that's going to end today's video, guys, and I hope you have enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment and sub, and I'll see you next time.